Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Zach from ZenForce TCG. Today we're going to be taking a look at some of the undervalued or cards that I think might be the best short to medium term investment as far as singles go that are under $20. That's pretty difficult to find nowadays, especially with these more modern eras, in the sense that feels like everything is going to the absolute moon. But there are still a few cards that I really like that are at or below $20, and some of them have some pretty good PSA 10 gains and PSA 10 rates. So let's dive into that and take a look at some of these singles right now. So the first one I want to take a look at is actually the Mew from the Galarian Gallery of Crown Zenith. You will notice that I have a handful of cards from Crown Zenith in this video. The Mew, I think, is one of the better looking cards from the Galarian Gallery in terms of like the full art trainer gallery looking style of card. It's sitting at $21, so we're technically just above $20 right now. But I do think that this card has some pretty good returns. It's currently going for around $150 to $170, let's say, in a PSA 10. And before we go too far into the video, again, a lot of what I'm going to be going over is not directly telling you to buy these cards. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not, this is just based on my own personal opinion and just looking at some of the data. The issue is that every single card across the board right now is up 10, 20, 100%. And so it's really difficult to sort of navigate which ones are going to be the best in the future or which ones may fall the hardest. And so I was just trying to make this video to target a lot of the collectors, investors, people that comment on videos and or DM me on Instagram asking for plays that are kind of lower budget. And so these are some cards that I think you should take a look at. The next one I will go over is also from Crown Zenith. It is Cynthia's Ambition. It's an ultra rare. It's up 90% in the last 3 months. I honestly will not really be going over the charts on most of these cards just because, like I said, you could take any of these, even from the cheapest cards that I've picked up here, and the charts are most likely up a decent amount. Now, what I will say about the Cynthia's Ambition is we have gotten leaks recently of the Garchomp from Heatwave Arena and Destined Rivals that's coming up. Has Cynthia in the artwork. This card could potentially see some moves in relation to that. I also just think Cynthia is a super popular trainer, and it's sitting around $19, so not the best, not the worst, but keep that in mind. I do think this card could see some moves potentially in the future. The next one I want to cover is the Pidgeot EX Special Illustration Rare from Obsidian Flames. This card is sitting at $17.39 for a near mint copy on TCG Player. I just like all three of these, Pidgeot, Pidgey, and Pidgeotto from the line, so I included all three of them in this list. They're pretty decent in PSA 10s as well. So if we look at the PSA 10 for the Pidgeot, I would say it's probably around 120, 125-ish. So pretty decent return on that if you can hit a 10. I do know that a lot of Obsidian Flame cards are really hard to grade, in the illustration slot especially, but this card is a really nice card. I did include the other two, Pidgey and Pidgeotto, in this list as well, which are sitting at $9.38 and $11.42. Again, kind of pricey for some illustration rares, but definitely not too high end. It's kind of nice that all three of the evolution line of this card is under $20. So whether you want to collect it or you like them like I do in the long term, I do really like this kind of comic style cartoon artwork. I think my favorite is probably the Pidgey. But yeah, I just wanted to point this one out. Again, all the charts are up and to the right for these cards, so it's difficult to give advice that they're going to continue to go up. But I just think that under $20, I wouldn't mind picking them up, even if they drop a bit. I do like them. Also, Obsidian Flames is not super likely to get a reprint just based on what I have heard and seen. It already got a decent resupply or reprint, restock with Paldea Evolved a couple months ago. So there's a slight cushion there for some of the Obsidian Flame cards. Also, again, they are pretty difficult to grade for some of them. And so a lot of the IRs are $100, $200 plus in a PSA 10. I did say the reprint for sets like Obsidian and probably ones like Paldea are less likely, but there is still always the possibility that these sets get another reprint, whether that be booster boxes or auxiliary products. And so the possibility of these cards having Corrections, ups, downs, everything in between is still very likely, so do not just think that things go up forever. However, with that being said, sets like Obsidian and certain cards in Paldea as well, they are still very difficult to grade. So even if they get reprints, let's just say they do, the odds of them being better print quality is still pretty unlikely, in my opinion, for at least sets like Obsidian Flames. And so I still like this pick and some of the others because of that reason. The next card I want to go over is the Quaquaval EX Special Illustration Rare from Paldea Evolved, sitting at $15.14. I just think that all the starters are pretty good picks. As far as like a longer, well, maybe medium to longer term investment. The Skeledirge I think is at like close to $30 raw now. The Meowscarada is over $20, but pretty close as well. So I think that one's still a good play. But again, I'm trying to stick to the script of under $20 here. Quaquaval, I believe Quaquaval is going for around, looks like, I don't know, 80 to 90 bucks in a PSA 10. So it's not really that expensive. The return isn't as good as some of the other cards we'll see here, but I do think it is a decent pickup right now. I've graded 2 of them in a PSA 10 before, so they're not too difficult, but I would just double check maybe the pop reports to verify that. But in my experience, I've had pretty good success rate with this card specifically. Now, similarly, we have the Florigato, the Quaxley. We got a couple others of the starters. Pretty much any of the starters I think are decent pickups. The IRs are definitely harder to grade. The Florigato is sitting at around 14 bucks. Same with the Quaxley. It's at $13.30. These were $5, $6 cards for a really long time. But the PSA 10s were super expensive at first because they were extremely difficult to grade. I think these are still like 100 to 100. I think this one's like 140. And then I think the Quaxley is like 100 or something like that. Next up on my list is Pikachu from Crown Zenith. Not the secret rare version, the regular, the GG30 ultra rare version. Pikachu is a pretty safe bet in general. There's a lot of Pikachu cards that don't go up, but I do think that Crown Zenith, this one is one of the better ones. It also has a connecting artwork. Sword and Shield is also out of print, and I think this card as well is sort of in that $90 to $100 PSA 10 price range. So it's not, again, as crazy as some of the other IRs, especially some of the cheaper IRs or more expensive IRs that you can get ridiculous returns on your money for PSA 10s. The point of this video is not to tell you to buy all of these cards. The point of it is just to go over some cards that I personally like that are under $20 and to get the idea in your head that there are still plays to be had on cheap cards, expensive cards, medium range cards. You really just have to do some of the digging yourself and be firm in your decisions and, buy something that you believe in and maybe that has upward price movement and possibly a decent return on a PSA 10. Like, you have to sort of trade off what you're actually going to be doing with the item. Are you going to grade it? Are you going to keep it raw in your binder for a long period of time? Are you trying to flip it within a few weeks, within a few months, within a few years? You have to decide all of those things for yourself. I'm not here to decide it for you, and neither is any other YouTuber. And so the point is to just sort of get you thinking, get you primed and ready, and maybe take a look back at some of these older Sword and Shield, Sun and Moon, XY sets, because there are lots of ultra rares I know in the $10 to $15, $20 range. They might be harder to grade in a PSA 10. That's why I mostly am bringing up the Sword and Shield Scarlet Violet era, but there are still opportunities to be had, so don't be discouraged. Another really solid one from Sword and Shield era, in my opinion, is the Charizard from the Lost Origin Trainer Gallery. I was talking about this card when it was $7 or $8 still. I'm going to continue to talk about it when it's $13. Look at that return. Very nice. 175 to 220 for one of the more recent sales. Probably that 150, 175 range. I will caveat this by saying this card is a little bit harder to grade. So the actual PSA 10 rate is pretty low. I think it's like 30 or 40%. But if you can get these copies either to keep raw at a cheaper price point, if you can get them $9, $10, or if you can get a very crispy minty copy to grade, this card is a great pickup in my opinion. We already went over some of the other starters. I'm not going to go too in depth on this. This is the Crocolore, the middle evolution. I believe this one's going for like 120, 130 maybe in a PSA 10, sitting at $12.82 near mint raw condition. Again, I don't think that's too pricey, and I think you have a pretty safe cushion somewhat safe is relative here. I'm just saying the reprint probability of Paldea is lower. Also, it's a starter, so it's maybe less volatile than certain other Pokemon that are just being juiced up because the PSA 10s are so expensive. Now, the last couple here are actually ones that I really, really like. One of them being the Latias Galarian Gallery from Crown Zenith. This card is sitting around $9.84. Now, it is up a decent amount from the last few months, and that is for a few reasons. One, the Pokemon bull market in general has kind of swept up a lot of cards. The second being that Crown Zenith itself is by far, bar none, the most popular set to open. I mean, 151 maybe gets close. Paldean Fates maybe gets close, but Crown Zenith is like the undisputed king right now. And so for Latias to still only be around $9 or $10 when, you know, we have ones like the Mew that have crossed $20, I really wouldn't be shocked to see this card hit $14, $15 in the next couple weeks to months. This one is sitting between $90 and $115 right now in a PSA 10. I really like it. You know, it doesn't seem super easy to grade in a PSA 10, but I do think this card will do well long-term, short-term, and medium-term. So we got two more cards to go through, one of them being the Meditite illustration rare from Stellar Crown. This is a selfish pick. I only have, I think, 2 or 3 copies of this card. I liked this card when it was $2. I liked it when it was $3. I liked it when it was $4. I still like it when it's $7. I think, honestly, this is one of the best looking illustration rares out of Stellar Crown. Now, this card is kind of all over the place in terms of the PSA 10s, but I would say it's probably around $70, $70, $80. I probably wouldn't pay more than $70, $75 for it. But if you wanted to pick up a couple raw copies, go ahead, I would say. Not one of the most popular Pokemon, but again, this is sort of just my own personal pick that I'm putting in at the end. There's probably not even many people watching the video to this point. But the last card I'm going to mention, I think, is one of the biggest sleepers alongside the Latias from the Crown Zenith Galarian Gallery, which is this Deoxys Galarian Gallery. Now, there's a few reasons behind that. Obviously, we mentioned a few of them already with the Latias and Crown Zenith in general. But I just want to point out something else, which is that we have a Deoxys VMAX and a Deoxys V-Star, which are in like the top 10 to 15 cards in Crown Zenith in general. This set, Crown Zenith, did a really good job on putting Deoxys sort of on a pedestal, in my opinion. And I do not believe, if I haven't already pointed it out, this card is only $5 raw. So I think this is super underpriced in terms of not only its artwork. I think it's one of the only cards I've ever seen that has Fusion Strike, Single Strike, and Rapid Strike on a single card. There might be a couple others with this. And I think it's like, what, $60, $70? Let me double check. In a PSA 10, Deoxys GG. Yeah, look at this. $55, $60 in a PSA 10. Again, this is not the biggest return right now. Actually, it is a pretty decent return if you can grade it. It's like a 200% gain. But I do think that this card, for its artwork, for the popularity of Deoxys in the set, and just for some of the Crown Zenith Galarian Gallery cards in general, I do think this is one of the more underpriced ones. The fact that it's $5 is just crazy to me. Like, it should be at least $7, $8, $9, in my opinion. I own 0 copies of this card, so I have nothing to pump here. But I do think this is a really good card. Honestly, depending on how much longer it stays at this price, I may have to pick some up. But it's a really cool card. It's got so much going on, but that's just kind of what we get from Deoxys, I feel like. So I'll round out the video just by saying that I do still think there's a lot of cards I didn't mention here that are in Crown Zenith under $20 that are good pickups right now. You can see a lot of those ultra rare Galarian Galleries. And then we have a ton more of these sort of full art trainer gallery looking Galarian Galleries. One of the other ones I really liked that was super, super cheap was like the Duskull, Swablu, some of these other ones that are in that connected artwork with the Pikachu. But again, I didn't want to go over too many cards and I didn't want to reach too far down in terms of that. But I do think there are some of these other cards from Crown Zenith that are going to do well in the coming months just because of the popularity of the set. If the pack price continues to rise in the trajectory that it's been going, I do think this set you will see a lot of these lower end singles reach $4, $5, $6 and ones that are in that $5-6 range reach $10, $11, $12. So I wouldn't be surprised by that. That's all I wanted to cover in today's video, guys. Let me know what you think down below. What are your favorite picks at or around $20? Are there any that I missed? You know, I mainly stuck to Sword and Shield, Scarlet Violet, as I normally do, just because that's really the eras that I have been most involved in. I do have some holdings in Sun and Moon and XY, but nothing like I do in these two eras. So let me know down below what you think. And other than that, I will catch you guys in a new one soon. Peace.